Well, welcome to our session on the next major war that will lead us into the solution to the current Middle East crisis. In this session, we find the world in a state of utter chaos and confusion. All the Christians are gone from the world. Perhaps as many as 1 billion people have just suddenly disappeared. The door is now open for non-Christian nations such as Russia and the Islamic nations to flex their military powers and attack Israel as set forth in Ezekiel 38 and 39. The remaining world powers will not interfere in this war. Now let's quickly review the major events of this war as set forth on slide 10. A war between Israel and a Russian coalition of Islamic nations is about to begin. Now God allows this war to prove to the world that He is God. And God fights this war for Israel as He has in previous wars with Israel and their enemies. God will destroy 5/6 of the Russian and Islamic nations who participate in the war against Israel. This war will further change the world's spheres of influence across the remaining nations of the world. When Ezekiel wrote this prophecy in the 6th century BC, several bands of the Rosh people lived in an area to the north of the Black Sea. Linguistically, the name Rosh was originally associated with the tribe of Ros or Rus, which lent its name to a variety of topographical features in what is now the Ukraine and Russia. Historical and archaeological evidence all favor the conclusion that the Rosh people of Ezekiel 38 and 39 were well known to ancient and medieval writers by a variety of names which derived from the names of Tyrus and Rosh. From this mixture with Slavs and with Varangian Rus in the 9th century, the Rosh people of the area north of the Black Sea became known as the Russians. Now, as set forth in Ezekiel 38, verse 1 to 16, the invasion of Gog, which is Russia, with an introduction of the aggressors whose paired names has given rise to this prophecy popularly being called the Battle of Gog and Magog. However, Gog is a people and the ruler of Magog, which is a place. So it's probably more correct to say the Battle of Gog or Magog or the Battle of Gog. Or maybe you'd like to even more simply call it the Gog War. Russia is not predicted to be a world conqueror, but rather a dangerous regional power with a vast arsenal of deadly weapons. Persia, or Iran of today's world, is the first confederate named. It's not a coincidence that Russia has signed a treaty with Iran binding it to fight alongside the Iranians if the West attacks. Iran knows this, and this is why they are so bold in their aggressive terrorist activities. Russia has supplied the Muslim nations of the Middle East with the most lethal weapons known to man. And this war will begin with a coordinated attack against Israel by Russia and an Iranian-led Muslim force. And biblical scriptures warn Russia, "I will put hooks into your jaws and pull you to your doom." The treaty between Russia and Iran was formed and put into action in February of 1991 under the code name the Grand Design. Now this treaty, I believe, is the hooks in the jaw that will ultimately cause Russia to lead the invasion of Israel in the near future. This forthcoming war will be fought between the Russian coalition of nations and God over the land God has promised to Israel. And Israel will not have to fight this war. Just as in Old Testament times, God will once again supernaturally fight a war for Israel. He will supernaturally destroy 83% of the Russian coalition of nations. Millions of Russian and Muslim people will die in this war. Israel will spend 7 months burying the dead of the Russian coalition in the plains and mountains of Israel. And they will also be burning the Russian coalition weapons for a period of 7 years. Now this war will probably begin about 3.5 years before the 7-year tribulation begins. So the door is now open for a new world leader to emerge, the Antichrist. And before we move on to explore how the Antichrist comes to power, are there any questions or discussions about this war?